In the previous lecture, we brought up the compile window by clicking here, and then we chose format as ebook, and we said compile for EPUB, which is short for electronic publication. I also said what I was going to do is walk you through the various compilation options. So let's start with the first one, contents. You will notice, if you look to the right, that you have 4 columns. You have the include column, the title, page break before, and as is. I'll talk about each one in a second. But if you scroll down, you'll notice that it shows you every single piece of content here matches every single piece of content over here. Okay? So let's pretend that you didn't want to include the first piece of content, coupons and mobile marketing keys. You could uncheck it. Okay? So now it's not going to be included in the final part of your book. This is important to know. So that means that if you were working on something and it wasn't ready to be included, you could simply uncheck it. Check it, and it goes back, uncheck it, and it's not included in the final version of your book. If you want to start every single chapter, so let's assume that each one of these articles is going to have its own chapter, or let's just assume you wanted to start every one of those articles at the top of their own page, you click page break before. If you wanted to do it manually, you can do it here. Elsewhere, you have the ability, especially when it comes to this thing, separators, to control pagination. But this is a neat place to force a page break, okay? As is. One of the things that I touched on briefly was you got to type all your content in here, but at no point did I ever really talk to you about formatting. Sure, you probably can see this looks like Helvetica or Arial, this text underneath, and it probably looks like 12 point, which I believe it is. But that doesn't mean that that's what it's going to look like when it's compiled, okay? That was just the way that it renders inside the IDE while you're building your book or your manuscript or your course or whatever it is you're writing. If you wanted the way this is appearing to stay exactly as is, you check the box. So if you made this super sexy and you chose certain fonts and certain colors, you check as is. And then that particular piece of content, when it's compiled into the finished book, it will keep the look that you gave it as is. Otherwise, it will inherit the look, the style, the formatting, the font, the spacing, all of it from further down inside the compile options, okay? The other thing that you want to note down here is it says compile included documents. So you can obviously compile all the checked ones, or you can compile all of the excluded documents, which is kind of weird, but you could. And we could say all, and then it ignores all of it. The other thing is you can filter documents. So let's say that you were working on a document and you've marked it using some of the other, advanced Juju. There are ways that you can mark documents with statuses, and you can say it's incomplete. And if you didn't want to include any document that was marked incomplete, then it wouldn't appear here, okay? And finally, this thing called Frontmatter. Now, we haven't built any Frontmatter into our book yet. Elsewhere in this course, I talk about the design and the way, the layout you want your book to look. In fact, if you look at our design of our book right now, it's butt ugly. I mean, we've got 20 documents. We don't have a title, we don't have a cover, we don't have table of contents, we don't have a front matter. Front matter, by the way, is where the name of the author, the various bits and pieces go, and so on. If you're compiling it for Amazon, the way you think about the front matter is different than if you're compiling it, say, for yourself or for different platforms, and we talk about that elsewhere in this course. But that would be where you would include it if you wanted. You check on it, and then you pick it from the list. And then you move down the list. So I'm going to shut down this lecture and we'll hop on to the next one. So that was the contents section of compiling.